Hello and welcome back to the Lapdown podcast with your favourite Formula One hosts, Dan and Alex. Alex, you're on a flyaway, I think they call it a flyaway weekend, aren't you? But it's a flyaway 2 months. But yes, I'm still in the UK. Alex is in Australia. So if there is any kind of accent changes for the other co-host, then we apologise. He is actually Australian, but I dare say spending more time in Australia will become more Australian, which will just be annoying for everybody.
It happens on the phone as well. I don't even need to be in this country. I can speak to another Australian on the phone for like 2 minutes and it goes through the roof. But yeah, I'm on they complain about triple headers. I'm on an octuple header of being away. So we'll see how I feel. I think I'll probably feel okay because it's warm over here. I'm in a t-shirt and there might even be a Bali edition of the podcast in the middle where I'll just be absolutely Max Verstappen on cocktails. So there's a lot to come in the off season.
Let's get a beach background with some like Mai Tais going on and some dancing girls in the background. And we'll just have a great time.
Resort shirts. See, this is how we get people to go and watch the video version of the podcast, is we promise my arms and resort shirts. This is it.
Yeah. Topless.
Perfect.
Anyway, we had Qatar. And if we would like to continue on our penis analogy from Las Vegas, I think it'd be fair to say, in my opinion anyway, that Qatar was a shower and not a grower. It looked pretty. It looked fantastic. The lights were on. They'd been out there and individually like painted the little stones to go in the gravel traps, and they'd resurfaced it. They'd shaved the curbs down. They actually had people in the stands, which is another point that I want to raise as well.
Sold out race weekend, mate.
And it looked brilliant. And then the cars lined up on the grid, got round the first corner, and in my opinion, awful.
Some of them got round the first corner. Not all of them. Some of them got round the first corner.
We had 2 race starts and we lost 5 cars, didn't we, I think, in turn 1?
Yeah.
And these are the best blokes in the world.
Which you always know is going to happen with the safety car. You're never looking at the front of the field on the safety car restart. You're looking like longer through the lens into the bit that's out of focus, going, which car's going to be backwards in a minute because it's going to be one of them.
Oh, I wonder what Pierre Gasly's up to. The one and only time that you care.
Kevin's not on the track anymore. I wonder what's happened there. No, look, it's this, and it's where me and you sort of disagree a little bit, perhaps, on some of our Formula One viewing, that as a 90 minutes of television, you know what? Enjoyable 90 minutes of television. As a Formula One race, with, as you say, the best 20 drivers in the world driving some of the most incredible machinery and, built by the cleverest people in the world, not their best showing. Not the FIA's best showing, which we'll get to. That's going to dominate plenty of the pod. It was very pretty. It was a painting, but then you find out it was a replica painting. It wasn't actually a Monet. It was just done by a bloke called Martin, who just put it in a frame and stuck it up on Etsy. But I didn't have a terrible 90 minutes watching it. But I don't think it made Formula One any better as a sport or a championship.
No, it was okay. It was nothing better than that, I don't think, in my really honest opinion. And I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Formula One's got itself in a very, very strange place at the moment. That Formula One as a spectacle, as a sport, works really well on a circuit like Vegas. And it shouldn't do, because the circuit is, like, undoubtedly, if you look at the circuit, it's boring. There's so little happening there. Qatar, on the other side, looks like the best thing ever to be able to sit down in a Formula One car and fly around for an hour and a half. That looks insane.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really allow for anything to really materialize. Nobody can really get close enough because of all the dirty and turbulent air that goes on. They shortened the DRS zone down the main straight, which didn't really help anybody's cause whatsoever. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Kevin Magnussen's wing mirror, I honestly think there would have been lap 1, turn 1, and nothing else at all. And that literally would have been cars following themselves around for the entire 90 minutes. And it was the case of shoddy build quality from Haas that actually generated something. And I dare say there must have been something going, just leave it out there. Just leave it out there.
Yeah.
Because somebody will hit it at some point. And if nothing else, it will just kind of go... And everyone will go, look, that's cool.
Early fireworks.
Other than that, best case scenario, a couple of people get punches. Maybe it's Max, maybe it's Lando, maybe it's Charles. As it turned out, it was Carlos and it was Lewis, and it didn't really have much of effect on anything anyway. So Yeah, unbanged. It's not for me, that one. I don't
What
think,
was
and I'd struggle.
interesting is I certainly praised Vegas last week for being a very good 90 minutes of racing without extenuating circumstances and without non-racing 20-car on-track factors. And then this week couldn't be more of the opposite. This week, again, an enjoyable 90 minutes of viewing for me, but entirely extenuating circumstances to the point that I don't even think they were extenuating anymore. They had become the norm, that it just wasn't, actual racing. But yeah, what I will say about Qatar, as much as maybe the track's not good for racing, the paint is very pretty. I'm a big fan of the painted runoff areas, and I think I could do with seeing that a lot more tracks. I think it would be quite a cool way to get some local flair into it. I know different places do it in different ways, but look, I'm sure it's expensive and difficult to do and tricky to maintain, but I would much prefer, a giant mural instead of a concrete runoff area at every track. So if we can mandate that, please, as what you need to be like a level 1 track or whatever it's called, grade 1 track, painted runoff areas,
We'll see it next week. It feels like a very Middle Eastern thing to do, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like Bahrain looks incredible off track. Abu Dhabi looks incredible off track, and so does Qatar. And then you go to a Silverstone and an Austria and a Spa, and you'll just go
the painting, and then everyone else is boring.
Here's a puddle and a pine tree and just some sand over there, and this fine though because it works. But look, if that's kind of what we come to expect from that area of the world and those kind of races, then that's great, because that gives us something different to actually kind of look forward to. Not that we should massively be looking forward to kind of what colour they painted the sand traps. We should be looking forward to the racing.
Shouldn't be looking at that.
The last thing I'm going to say, just to kind of bash Vegas one last time.
We're going back a week. We're going back a week from the bashing.
This race was in Qatar, right? And Qatar's never really been made to be a spectacle of like, oh, look at this glitzy glamour and stuff like that. It's an oil race. It's fantastic, and it does an incredible job at putting that show on. But there was actual effort to kind of show the fact that people were there in the crowd. And like down the grid, it was kind of like panning around there, and you're like, oh, cool, there are actually people here watching it. Why is that not a thing in Vegas, other than the fact that they're just embarrassed that there is nobody there? Because we're selling Vegas as a spectacle, and we're selling it as a spectacle that nobody's going to watch. Yet, Qatar, in our opinion, those grandstands could have been full, but we never really saw. You go to Qatar, and it's like, oh, well, it's just a race before you get to Abu Dhabi, and no one really wanted to go there because it came on during COVID, and we thought, oh, it could be all right, so we'll go back again. And they've gone, wow, look at all these people walking down the steps, and you've got stewards going, sit down, and stuff like this, and it's great.
Saw that.
If what sport? If I know you disagree with this, but what is sport if people aren't actually engaging with it?
Yeah. Well, what I find really interesting as well is Qatar feels like one of the more isolated tracks for me when you're watching it, and Bahrain is a little bit similar, apart from that start-finish straight, where because there is so much runoff area, and I think this is why they do paint so much of that runoff area, because there is, when you actually sit back and look at it, miles of the stuff. It's in the middle of nowhere, the track, in relation to its own stands and infrastructure and stuff. You see so many corners where it just seems to go on to the horizon before you see a catch fence, finally. And you are right, there was so much more presence of crowd there in the direction and in what you saw. I don't know. I can only imagine it is to do with... There must have been a directive on it, because F1 controls all of their own broadcasting, right? So it would be in F1's own interests to A, present a consistent product, and B, to do the best to market their own product. So that was a firm in-house decision as well. We can't even blame that on... It's not like Monaco that has its own TV setup, or used to, definitely, where you could go, oh, well, that was just a Vegas thing. They wanted to show buildings and not this. Like, it was... Yeah. That's all on them. But, odd. Not the most odd thing of the weekend, and not the most odd thing of last weekend, but odd. No. Last thing on Qatar, gravel strips, fair play, really good. I didn't think they would become a talking point for a second podcast, but I can't argue with the fact that the gravel strips did an excellent job of exactly what they were there to do. A punishment but you weren't killed for it. You got a heavy slap on the wrist. You run a little bit wide, and depending on how far you pushed it, you're either losing maybe 2/10 for dipping 2 wheels, or if you go all 4 in that, you may be damaging your ass a little bit, and you're probably losing 6 or 7/10. But you're still going in the right direction. You're not hitting anyone else. You're not beaching yourself and Lance Strolling yourself out of the race. Perfect. You went online, you got punished for it, and it wasn't just a warning on the timing screen.
Yeah. No, there were some wins in Qatar. There were some wins. There were. You have to look in the dirt for them, but they were there, and that you have to applaud them for it. But what happens with the whole wing mirror situation? Like that really kind of did not shine. It isn't just the drivers that kind of have to adhere to this being like the greatest 20 drivers on Earth at the minute. Like the whole spectacle has to be kind of in unison and pulling the same party line. And we've left a lump of Haas in the middle of a start-finish straight for what felt like about 8 laps.
Yeah.
Up to the point that, and I still don't think up to the point that Bottas ran it over, that anybody was going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And I understand that we've gone past the point of just, don't worry, just let the chubby Marshall just jump over the catch fence and he can sprint out there, pick it up and sprint back in like a half-second gap whilst the car flies down there at 200 mile an hour. That's important that doesn't happen. But you've got all kinds of manner of things now to be able to kind of remove things properly. And as well, the worst thing about it was, albeit the DRS straight was 100 meters shorter, it was the only place that anybody could overtake. And we had 8 laps, or what felt like 8 laps. It might have been less, but it felt like 8, where everything was completely nullified, unless of course your name was Lando Norris. But it was perplexing. I just couldn't understand what was going on. And the whole broadcast spoke about a wing mirror for about 10 minutes.
There were close-ups on it. They knew it was there. It wasn't out of sight, and they didn't know how big it is, how hard it was to get to, or whatever. The broadcast had done close-ups on it to the point that you could almost read the sponsor name on the side of the mirror.
Yeah.
That's how
we could see the cameraman in the bloody reflection looking back at it.
Yeah, like it's. What I think's worse as well, they've come out and tried to defend it like they hadn't got it wrong. So I think it's good that the FIA not justifying. I think it's good that the FIA are putting out those, like, why we made the decision we made documents. I think that's a good thing. Transparency at any point is better than non-transparency. In this situation, they've not helped themselves because their transparency proves the issue even more, that no one read their reasoning and went, you know what? Okay. That was not anyone's reaction to them going, we didn't, wasn't that big a bit of debris. It wasn't much in the way. And then,
but then it was because it was double waved yellows down the start-finish straight for the whole time.
Also, it was double wave yellows, and then it wasn't double wave yellows, and then it was, and then it wasn't, and then it was, and then it wasn't, and then it was slippery, and then not slippery, and then DRS was off, and then on, then off, and then on, then off, and then on. There's this. If you see the timing chart readout of 3 or 4 laps, it's like someone playing Uno. It's colours on colours, and then it's back on, and it's just going round in circles, and fuck yous, and +4s, and reverse cards, and all the rest of it. No one knew what the hell was going on, and that is so worrying that they just evidently didn't know what to do. This was not Romain Grosjean in a barrier on fire. Oh shit, we haven't planned for this. What do we do?
No.
This is a fist-sized piece of carbon and mirror. Yes, off the racing line, but very much in the overtaking line. It's about 5 yards away from a barrier. There are so many options here to resolve this, and just not doing anything is not one of those options. I don't know the inside outs of a sporting directive as to what they can do, but I can think of 3 straight away. You have got the VSC immediately, which I don't necessarily think would have worked because you still would have had to have sent somebody out there to get it. The cars were too spread out for that to have worked.
And that's fine.
Pull the VSC, check, and then unpull the VSC if you go, actually, no, we had a look, we couldn't create a gap, we're going to have to try something else.
But you've also got a safety car sat at the end of the pit lane, which would have worked
waiting
fine.
to go when the lights were.
Hear me out, and this could have been crazy. VSC, all cars down the pit lane for 1 lap. Done.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Cured it. Fantastic. Well done. Lovely job. As it stands, they've essentially ruined 2 people's weekends who were on their way. Well, Carlos in particular was off to kind of go and score some decent points for Ferrari, which obviously would have made a big difference for them chasing McLaren down. And Lewis, to be fair, I don't think his weekend could have got much worse up to the point that he ran over a bit of debris from a wing mirror.
I will say, and I will put a big old asterisk on this, he ruined his own weekend, but they've also ruined Lando Norris's weekend. Lando Norris absolutely got it wrong, and I am not suggesting by any means that he's blameless in that, but he was only in the situation to have made that mistake because the situation existed. I think there is, and again, there'll be more Lando chat on this in a minute, I'm sure, but I am willing to concede, albeit 19 other drivers saw it and lifted, that the marshalling and the messaging and stuff through that straight for those laps was confusing because you had a solid light board that was just saying that the track is slippery and that there's a caution here. I think you did have some double wave at some points and you had DRS on and off. It was not super clear cut. There's also an issue with this concept of what a double yellow is, and there will be purists, I'm sure, that will go, we've had it for 40 odd years and it's never been a problem before. A VSC dictates that you have to scrub your speed, I think, either to 40% or down by 40%. And it is a firm, measurable number. There's data that you can attribute to it. That's what you have to slow down to. Mm-hmm. A double wave yellow is, slow down a bit, be ready to stop if you need to. Mm. But ready to stop is not a measurable metric. Because if I'm going down the motorway at 70 mile an hour and I can see something up ahead, there's suddenly a lorry sideways where I don't think it should be, I'm mentally preparing to stop before I've taken my foot off the accelerator because your brain goes, ooh, that don't seem right. I might need to do something in a minute. And I'm preparing to stop at that point, and I'm continuing to prepare to stop up until I'm stationary. It's the same in an F1 car. A driver could be prepared to stop with their foot flat down, opening DRS and on their radio. You can still be preparing to stop, and you've got no way to prove that I wasn't. So I don't want to be one of those reactionary, change the rules anytime there's a problem that something doesn't happen. And double wave yellows have largely worked for however long. Put a number on it. You must lift, you must reduce 25% of your speed, or you must be off throttle completely. And we're saying it's not lift, it is foot off. Freewheel through the double wave. I don't know what the actual solution is, but surely it clears up everything, because you can look at all the throttle maps and all the telemetry, and 20 blokes did it 20 different ways, dropping various levels of speed. You're going to get into these situations when you leave grey areas in laws.
It's subjective. It's subjective, which is exactly the point that you're making. And at that point there, you can kind of argue cases, because the other thing, and I was thinking about it whilst I was watching it, and obviously it says prepare to stop. And obviously in your and I's kind of minds, as we're kind of pootling up and down the M1 in kind of various kind of hatchbacks or saloon cars or whatever it is that someone might be driving, your stopping distance from 70 mile an hour is going to be a long old way.
Yeah.
Stopping distance in a Formula One car from 200 mile an hour is probably going to be a fraction of that distance. So actually prepare to stop. If you're kind of on that kind of mindset, prepare to stop. And these blokes are good at driving, as much as we made the joke about lap one. And they've got 2 feet on the pedals as well. They're not taking their foot off the accelerator onto a pedal. It's there, ready to go. It's primed. Turn 1, lap 1. You just go, boop, done, and stop in an instant. Lock the tyres up, done, stop. That's fine. But as you say, there is no kind of clear-cut kind of way of kind of saying that this, I did lift, I didn't lift. The only thing we have got for certain is we do have that evidence that Lando did keep it pinned all the way down that start-finish straight,
right,
which was wrong. Was he the only person to do it? I don't know. We only saw one person out of 16 runners at that point, or on boards as he went down that start-finish straight. Maybe he was the only person because that's the only person we saw. Maybe we didn't see Guan Yu Zhou because he was running around in 17th and nobody actually gave a shit about it, but it was because Max kind of put the message through, and then that caused that to come through, and the TV director said, here we go, and we'll have a look at this, but actually the bloke 3 places later did exactly the same, but because no one was about him, no one actually cared. And maybe that's the issue. All I will say, and prepare for this segue, if it was George, I dare say he might have been able to have got on the phone to the FIA and gone, no, I did lift. Mate. Buddy, old pal.
Yeah, you touched on something else in there as well, which might be alarming, it might be a non-event because we don't know, and we won't know, and we will continue to speculate. How much of a role does Max Verstappen have in that? Were the stewards already... do they monitor these double yellows to make sure that they're lifting? And again, it comes back to how much do you have to lift or whatever. But was it Max being on the radio that made the stewards go, oh, maybe we should we have... Oh, we'll have a look. Nathan, have a quick look at that number 4. Did he come off? Because he shouldn't be up to another bloke going at 250 mile an hour to do that job. I know they all do it because they love a whinge, but that shouldn't be on him. And you can't help but feel that maybe it was on him, but it might not be on him. I hate the whole team radio of, oh, this driver did this, check it. Like, let the referees do the refereeing, let the umpires do the umpiring. Just, you just drive the car. But
it's what baffles it even further is the fact that you've still got one of the drivers walking around with their arse in their hand because somebody came over a radio and threw up a stink about a qualifying incident, and by all accounts kind of used foul and abusive language in various kind of pit pens and stuff like that after a race, which is fine. Heat at the moment, they're kind of high testosterone blokes, adrenaline's flying through the system, and I don't particularly care if somebody shouts at somebody and calls them a bad word or takes the piss out of them. It's fine. But then if you're going to live by that sword, how can you then go back on that sword and sit at the other end of the sword and whip it back out and stab somebody else in the back for exactly the same thing that you feel that somebody else is the worst bloke in the history of the sport ever, to have done exactly the same back to somebody else? And it just, I don't know, like he's always had that kind of holier than thou kind of, these rules don't apply for me
is what I'll call
type.
It. He's got a very private schoolboy blazers on attitude.
And it's just, I just don't know at what point does somebody get to it with Max and just goes, you know what, I don't care anymore. Like, there was a safety car restart, I think the 3rd safety car restart, I think anyway. And Lando had a really good run on Max, and Max showed him the outside, and that was fine. And obviously, Max runs Lando as far wide as he possibly can, which then causes Lando to come out the throttle. Why doesn't he just crash? Why doesn't he just drive into him? Because I think that would kind of be kind of my situation at the moment. I'd be like, there's 2 races left. He's already won the World Championship. It doesn't matter. Screw it. You can't just keep running people off the road. And let's just have an accident. And let's have a fight about it. Let's punch each other on the side of the track. And let's give somebody something to actually sort out. Because all the while that nothing actually happens about it. And I know I've gone on a massive tangent here from George kind of having a squinny about a qualifying lap. But nothing will ever change. Until you get something that you have to address, nothing's ever going to change, and it's always going to be kind of, as you said, private schoolboy, had different rules to kind of grow up by and all this other stuff, and we'll just continue getting away with stuff, and I don't necessarily think that makes it a particularly great sport either.
Though what I will say, kind of had this in 21, because he ended up on top of another bloke that he was fighting with, and he still does it. In Monza, he literally parked his car on Hamilton's head because Hamilton wouldn't concede the corner at that point, and it was, I suppose, arguably the same in Silverstone where Hamilton punted him into a wall at fucking 200 mile an hour. I've got the email. I've sent you an email. I've got the diagrams. But he has, and that's almost the worrying bit as well. He's been sort of confronted as a bully a couple of years ago, and then Hamilton went on too old for this shit. I can't be bothered anymore. Arguably, he's not been in a car close enough to him for long enough to get into that situation. But shouldn't need to. People will go, they're talking shit about Max Verstappen again. I think we're actually quite 50-50 on Verstappen. I mean, he does incredible things, and arguably Qatar was actually, his racing on the full fasty bits was quite good.
Brilliant.
Quite good, really good. He was not in the fastest car for that weekend, as Perez showed. Cheers, mate. And he ran away with it quite comfortably, and I think would have run away with it. He would have had to work a lot harder with it with Lando alongside, I think, if it was just 70 laps of clean, fair, full-speed racing. It would have been different. But as it stood, he ran off into the distance. And, one of the more intense tracks on the calendar, can't argue with what you've done, lad. But, it would also just be nice if... Can we have no handbags or maximum handbags, right? Let's not have sometimes handbags, right? Either swing at each other or kiss, right? I don't want anything in between those two things, right? And this is becoming a bit of a Wattpad. I'm very aware of that. But just one or the other. right? MMA or porn. Let's do one or the other when we're not racing.
Yeah. No, I honestly agree. Like, I just can't be bothered with the passive aggressiveness. And look, next year, if somebody crashes into Max or Max crashes into somebody 24 times during the course of the calendar, he ain't going to win a world championship. And maybe that's the point that somebody's going to learn. Probably going to be somebody different each week that crashes into them, because they'll have an opportunity to do so. But
maybe
I don't
they
know.
just need a roster. Maybe they come up with a roster in the WhatsApp group of who's dive bombing this week into a side pod.
But I don't even think you'd need to dive bomb.
No,
you just have to be near, and something would happen. But I don't know. It's a shame. It's never going to change. Let's be honest. I don't see him ever changing his kind of technique. No. And it's 1 in 4 consecutive world drivers titles. So why would he change? And there haven't been many people, if anybody, in the history of the sport that have won 4 on the bounce. So good for him. His teammate, on the other hand, is it time to... Now, this is always a bit close to home, isn't it, when you use this analogy, because everybody's had pets and things, and it kind of feels like it's about that time that he's a bit limpy, like he can't really kind of get up under his own steam. He's got a leaky bottom. He leaves kind of like wee stains in the middle of the lounge because he can't get himself outside enough, and he needs to get up through the middle of the night, like at 1 o'clock and at 1:30 and 2 o'clock. And is it time, if he were to be a pet, that we took him to a vet and sent him to the kind of the dog play park in the sky?
Yeah. Watching the Qatar Grand Prix, I did... At what point is Perez's performance going from being funny to being genuinely upsetting to watch? Because for me, I think Qatar, we've now reached the genuinely, this is uncomfortable now. It's not even funny anymore, because it's just a different thing every weekend. It's not even that he's just pootling cleanly in P9 and you go, you're in a P4 car. Why are you not getting P4 out of this? It's a different excuse every time. Why have you gone out in Q1 this time, Checo? Oh, well, someone sneezed going around turn 4 and that's why I was backwards. Like, it's just, no, he's never going to come out and say, I'm probably at, very end of my career now. I'm just not as good as I was. But a lot of other drivers, Lando's very good at this, probably almost to a fault, of going, and Hamilton is very good at it as well, to be fair, going, I wasn't quick enough today. Sorry, team. I messed up. I made too many mistakes. I'm going to be better next week. And everyone goes, oh, no, sweet baby, you weren't really. Like, no, you'll be fine. We'll see you next week. Like, have a hug. Very rarely do you get your Hamiltons and your Norrises and stuff come out and go, I was perfect, but someone only put 3 wheels on my car. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I think Perez has said more than any other words this year. Like, that's a catchphrase now is, guys, like, what happened?
What is he looking at the end of the pit lane on the sprint race to just be jumped by?
I didn't start.
It didn't move.
I was embarrassed by everything else. I'd forgotten he didn't even start the fucking race.
No. Like, what? You're sat down there. You're literally both hands on the steering wheel, foot on the pedal, ready to go. The lights go green. The noise. There's audio cues. There's visual cues. Not only do you get a light, but you also get cars flying past at the end of the pit lane. I'm sure it might smell different. Why not? There might be a bit of burnt rubber going on as well.
Yeah.
There's probably 3 senses going on here. Plus actually noise. I'm sure somebody in the ears going, go on, off you go. But he's just sat there, and Colapinto's driven round him, and to the point that Colapinto, I think, was so confused as to what was going on that actually it made it look slightly less offensive than what it was, because he was sat there going, are we meant to go yet?
It was like Brazil all over again, with people going, Lando's gone. Are we supposed... Yeah. Do I... Oh, okay.
Well, the light's green. Oh, I'm off. Yeah. I'm going. Honestly. Is
Sergio Perez the first driver to ever be overtaken off the line from a pit lane start in a Grand Prix? He must be. Who else has had a pit lane start and lost positions before the end of the straight before?
Well, I mean, we are in like 75 years of Formula One, so it may well have happened in the past. But
even still, I got
if it
just
has, it's an exclusive club.
fuck yeah,
It's an
quite a
exclusive club. I mean, he dropped it by himself under a VSC.
which again, he's claiming not his fault. Engine over delivered, and then I think what I'm loving at the minute, if we want to talk about handbags, is Horner is clearly at the end of his rope because Perez will be in the TV media pen going, the car has had a problem. It's over-delivered power through that corner. I don't know what I could have done. And Perez is over in the written media corner going, well, that's maybe what happens when you put your foot down too hard as you spin it. And these people are on the same team, and they are giving the two opposite ends of what's going on here. That let's at least meet and get our excuse right before we go and do media. That's PR and sports media 101, right? What is our narrative? And they can't agree on a narrative.
No, I don't. I mean, I haven't for a while, but after that weekend, I don't see any scenario, any kind of. I mean, maybe if like Telmex or whatever it is turns up to Red Bull with $1 billion or something, then they might kind of reconsider. But
yeah,
I don't see a world where Sergio Perez is driving a Formula One car next year. I don't know what Red Bull do to replace him. I don't really think it matters at this stage. I think you could go back to any of their junior program drivers that Helmut believes has stunk the bed out in the past, and they would do a better job and would be, quite frankly, just less embarrassing on the entire organisation, which unfortunately is what Checo has become over the back end of this season. There's no other way to describe it, I don't think. I think even the most devout Sergio Perez fans will be sitting there kind of going, bloody hell, this is really hard to defend him now.
Yeah. For me, the easy answer to the money situation is currently sitting in a destroyed car. They don't have enough parts to be rebuilt, because I think if it's only money keeping Checo Perez in his seat, maybe not quite as much, but Franco Colapinto has the ability to bring that immediate cash injection from sponsors with him, from, an intersecting community, an intersecting fan base, if you like, that if it's essentially Perez as a pay driver, you can take. I'm taking Tsunoda personally from RB. I think, okay, the dude is not the next Max Verstappen. The dude is a very competent driver. He has massively sorted his attitude and his head out this year, and I think he is the safer bet. I think Lawson might come better in the long run, but Lawson also is sort of having a bit of a Colapinto arc, maybe, where he's sort of started really strong and is now just waking up to the realities of it. But your easy option, Tsunoda goes up to the main team. What have you got to lose? Because I think you're at risk of losing Tsunoda anyway, probably to Aston Martin when that Honda engine comes in. And I think we might maybe see Stroll out, Tsunoda in, or something like that.
No, yeah.
You take him in, you let him warm that seat for a little bit until you go find a 12-year-old that's really quick. You can take Colapinto into RB, take all of the money in Argentina, all of the fan base in Argentina that are going to buy as much merch as you can sell them, and you can stick him alongside Liam Lawson, and it can be, we don't love the concept of them, a genuine development team with two development drivers whose job is to not cost money, is to make money and go around in a car that looks like a pair of jeans. And for me, that's the easy 2025 win, because it's a free hit anyway. We're changing everything in 26. Okay, you've got to go and buy Colapinto out. That's fine. I don't think it takes a huge amount to buy Colapinto out, if we're being really honest, because Williams don't need him. They've got bloody Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
That's the path for me. If I'm, head of Red Bull, I'm going, I want that bloke in there. We'll bring Yuki across. Yuki deserves a crack at it. I'll say it. Yuki deserves at least a look in the big boy seat.
But good news is, though, Sergio Perez is contracted for next year, so we might actually still be talking about him in 2025.
Are we still testing? Oh no, it's not Bahrain. It's Australia again next year, isn't it? We're back to the OG stuff.
I saw they're building it already, I think, which is exciting. Right, okay, we've been going for 35 minutes now, so I think it's probably time that we just mention the fact that Abu Dhabi is next weekend. There is, well, in everybody's eyes, there isn't really anything to play for, unless, of course, you are the head of media for Formula One. Then it's time to really blow smoke on the fact that Charles Leclerc is only 8 points behind Lando Norris in the battle for second place. But other than
Famously,
that,
a battle that we track.
yes, I mean, everybody loves that battle. I mean, they've tried so hard over that period of time to make sure that this championship battle was mathematically possible going into Abu Dhabi. So they could have had all of these posters and T-shirts and all this other stuff kind of prepared for it. And they've gone, quick bugger. We better just like Photoshop Verstappen out of this, put Leclerc on it and just go, second place. It's not first, but it's still okay.
Still good enough. What is interesting, though, they've got a genuine championship battle in Abu Dhabi, because you've got McLaren v Ferrari, which is worth God knows how many millions of dollars, and actually a title. And you've got, 4 incredibly sexy men that you can put on that poster, and 2 very sexy logos and brandings, and orange and red are complementary colours side by side. Why are we not going all in on it's the decider, it's McLaren v Ferrari, who will come out on top in 2024? Done. Great. I would get. I'm so much more up and about to see whether, can McLaren not. Well, I suppose it is hold on to a sense, because they should have wrapped this up plenty long ago and haven't.
Yeah.
But I'm so up and about so at least there is some jeopardy of. Tell you what, if the Ferraris are quick around Abu Dhabi and there is an incident or a penalty or a deleted lap just means that Piastri's qualifying in P16 or something. That's my narrative, not who will not win an award and who will not go down in the history books as a winner. I don't give a shit about that. Tell you who won't go down in history books as a winner, Esteban Ocon, because he's not even going. And that's all we need to say on that. I don't think there's a huge amount to discuss.
I think I just think that's a great decision for all parties, to be completely honest with you. I think it works really well. There was some talk about kind of he deserved more respect, this, that, and the other, but actually I think it just works really well for Alpine, and it works really well for Haas.
He's not being binned. They've not got rid of him disrespectfully. You're out of F1. You don't have a drive. You're retired or sacked or whatever. He left you. Okay, I know it was mutual midway through the year. He's got another job offer and he took it. And you've just gone, don't worry about working your full notice period. We've actually already got your replacement in. Can you do a couple of weeks with him in a handover? And then actually, you know what? You got some annual leave left. Do you want to just have like an extra week off for Christmas?
Yeah.
Everybody wins. Everybody wins in this situation. And I don't even think it rubs off badly on Ocon. Like, he doesn't look like he's been binned. My opinion doesn't change with Esteban Ocon, because he's just going to put his feet up in hospitality in Abu Dhabi and then do some testing. Great. Winner.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Good for him. Anyway, it is Abu Dhabi. I think it will be. Is it a normal-ish kind of start time, or because it's not going to night race, is it? It's like a dusky race.
Yeah, I want to say
it'll be kind of 3 o'clock in the afternoon UK time, which is sometime in the night over in Perth. Which is
that'll be
kind of an issue
a morning.
for you,
I will not be staying up.
No. Oh well. Oh well. You're not doing anything now, are you? Other than just kind of sitting around and wrestling snakes and koalas.
That's my job. Yep. I wrestle snakes, I wrestle koalas, and I'm basically Steve Irwin. I'm a non-blonde Steve Irwin.
Less khaki. But if there is the off chance that you are going to post anything on the internet, where would they find it?
Alex typed that in theory on X, and I think I'm that on Insta now as well. I'm slowly getting the branding on side. But there'll be a little bit more going on your channels. So I would probably recommend that they drift in that direction for the foreseeable.
If they'd like to. If you'd like to have a little search for Dan Jads, you can find some cricket things on there. I'm actually in the process of editing a video where I've been terrified from facing Jaden Seals, which is
there we go.
Going to be really good. It's going to be really good. And obviously, if you've enjoyed this, drop us a like on the video or review on the podcast or a comment on there, or interact with us on social media or follow us on social media and all these other good things. I think we're about 50 people away from 1,000 on TikTok. So do that. And thank you very much and goodbye.